Good afternoon. I'm 14 First Alert meteorologist Arden Gregory.
And I'm meteorologist Michael Fecka, and we're here again with a 2:30 afternoon weather update. Of course, we've got some major upgrades here over the last couple of hours. We've got an upgraded risk now on Friday, so what was a level 3 has now been bumped to a level 4. And today,
we knew that was probably coming too. We were talking about it this morning that we were expecting this upgrade, and now it has happened. So we are now at a level 4 on a scale of 5.
Yes, and we're also still on alert for today. However, today's severe weather potential has a bit more of a caveat.
It's a very conditional risk, and we're going to talk about that and why that's the case as well. But let's start with a look at that risk we were just talking about. Today, we're all sitting at that level 2 risk, so that slight risk. Across the entire tri-state today, we're sitting at a level 2 risk. Are we having audio problems?
You're fine.
Okay. Okay. So apparently Michael's the problem, so I'll just keep talking. Okay, so today we're sitting at this level 2 risk across the entire tri-state. So scattered severe storms are possible. Maybe this evening, another chance overnight. But like we said, that's very conditional. So we'll be talking more about why the storms for tonight are a little more iffy compared to tomorrow. Tomorrow we have more confidence that the storms will happen and that they will be severe, at least some of them. Friday, there's that upgrade we had mentioned, the entire tri-state. So this is everyone. It's not just one part of the tri-state. There's not one area that's more at risk than another. The entire tri-state sitting at that level 4 risk. So widespread severe weather is now expected in the tri-state, and this would be Friday afternoon and evening.
Yeah, and there could be a couple of rounds with Friday's severe storm setup. We're talking about potentially a line moving through in the afternoon, and then maybe even a follow-up on that a little bit later on in the evening hours. So we're still kind of sorting out the timelines of everything. So.
Yeah, there's still some uncertainty on the exact timing and how many rounds of storms we're going to get.
Right.
When all is said and done, it could end up being a total of 4. One this evening, one overnight, and then one tomorrow afternoon, one tomorrow evening. But some of those may not happen, or it may end up being one big round tomorrow. There's still a lot of uncertainty with that. But we're going to take this sort of one day at a time. So we're going to start with Thursday and the risk for today into tonight, and then we'll really dig into the details on Friday as well. But let's start with what's going on out there right now, which is really not much right now.
Yeah, it's pretty quiet. We've got some sunshine out there, a few higher level clouds streaming on in. A really, really nice day. I mean, it is summer-like, it is hot, it is humid. So we know that when it's hot and humid, there's plenty of fuel for these thunderstorms, but the problem is we have that cap in place, which is just that little layer of warmer air that's kind of sitting above the surface that prevents those storms from actually building.
So that's why what we're about to show you, we're not really confident is actually going to happen, but it is a possibility that as we get later into this afternoon and evening, mainly after 5 p.m., that's when we could potentially see a few thunderstorms bubbling up across our region, moving from southwest to northeast. If those storms develop, they could become severe, but it's possible they won't happen at all.
Yeah, it is very possible maybe we squeak out of this with just a sprinkle. Like for tonight. So very, very conditional, a very 50-50 shot here. There's a lot of bust potential with today's severe weather
It could be all or nothing. We either won't get storms at all, or we could get storms with, severe winds, very large hail, maybe even a tornado. So very iffy on whether or not the storms this evening will actually happen. But that's just the first of 2 possible rounds of severe weather as we go through this evening and into the overnight hours. So we've got this isolated chance this evening, but then as we move forward into the overnight hours, this would mainly start closer to midnight and then continuing into early Friday morning. We've got this line that some of the models are depicting here, possibly developing and then moving sort of from northwest to southeast, the opposite of what we would be seeing this evening. So again, it's all very sort of convoluted here, but late tonight and then even lingering into tomorrow morning.
Yeah, and so that's what we're watching here, potentially, 1 to 4 a.m. we could see some more thunderstorms building in. Now, there is a potential for some severe weather with that, but it doesn't look like the risk for severe weather tonight or even overnight is a widespread risk.
Right.
That comes
not like what we're seeing tomorrow.
Yeah, not like what we're seeing tomorrow. So even if these storms do bubble up, I'm not anticipating, every storm to have a warning on it. I'm not anticipating anything like that. That's more in line with what we're expecting tomorrow.
Right, and that falls in line with the risk level that we're at for the rest of today and tonight, is that level 2 risk, where maybe a few severe storms possible, but widespread severe weather not expected. Now let's take a look at the individual risks with any storms that would develop tonight. Not really anticipating heavy rain or flooding this evening or overnight, but the rest of these are certainly in play, particularly worried about hail.
Yeah, hail, you'll notice here, all of these individual risks are at that 2 out of 4 level here on our graphic, but you'll notice that the hail has those black hatch markings on it, and that indicates it could be more significant. So we could be looking at not just large hail, but potentially hail of up to 2 inches in diameter or even greater if severe weather were to develop.
So this is just a different way of looking at that exact same information, sitting at a level 2 risk for wind, hail, and tornadoes, but that hail risk flagged as being significant. So that would be 2 inches or more. And if you're having trouble picturing what would 2-inch hail even look like, it's larger than what we would typically get. Anything a quarter or larger is considered severe hail. But once you get up past about an inch, it really starts to become rare or even very rare. And 2 inches would put you at about golf ball to hen egg size hail, and then maybe even up to tennis or baseball sized hail. And again, that's very conditional. That's if those storms can break through the cap, they may be capable of producing that kind of hail. But that cap really brings a lot of uncertainty to the whole situation.
It's a pretty strong cap as well. It's not like a meager one where it's like, oh, maybe 1 or 2 are easily gonna. It's a pretty thick, strong cap here.
And sometimes the cap does erode when you get into the overnight hours, so that's why we might see some storms late tonight after midnight. But like you said, that cap is pretty strong, so I'm not totally convinced that the storms today are going to happen. And when we're talking about cap, this is what we're talking about. Michael mentioned that little pocket of warm air. So you have this, air rising, and as long as it's rising into air that is cooler up above, it'll keep rising, right? And that updraft hits this layer of warm air, and then it stops. It's kind of like putting a lid on the atmosphere. That's why it's called a cap. So it kind of caps the convection there. Those clouds, those thunderstorms are not able to continue growing and developing, tapping into the stronger winds and colder air you have in the higher levels of the atmosphere that would really then drive that risk of severe weather. So when the atmosphere is capped, it really stops that storm development. Sometimes, though, the cap may thin out or weaken, or you just have strong enough convection that it can actually break through if the cap is weak enough.
Yeah, so, thunderstorms like when the atmosphere cools as it rises. But in the event of a cap, that's not the case. Uncapped, it'll continue to rise if there's sufficient heating. But even if a cap is in place, there could be a weaker area, like you mentioned. There could be a little hole that little parcel of air can sneak through. And then if it can be pretty explosive in development. So that's why tonight is kind of that all or nothing tag on it, because we could very well just end up with a few showers, or we could see some severe thunderstorms with the potential for some bigger hail.
But either way, capped the way we are, I don't think those storms would be widespread.
Right.
It would be just a few locations maybe where that cap thins out. It's just enough that it can break through. It would be, I think, pretty spotty, but where those storms are able to develop, they would have that potential of producing that very large hail, and we don't know where in the tri-state that would be if it were to happen. So that's why there's so much uncertainty surrounding what's going to happen this evening and into the night tonight. Tomorrow, though, not necessarily the same situation. We're more confident that the storms will actually happen tomorrow. We're not going to be so extremely capped, and we're going to have a lot more forcing, a much better chance of those storms developing tomorrow afternoon and evening. So we said we were going to take it day by day. That kind of, I think, rounds off Thursday. I'm going to check the comments real quick and see if we have any questions specifically about Thursday, and then we can move into Friday as well. I know that there are a lot more questions about Friday. That's the day that we've been upgraded. Thank you, by the way, to those of you who are sharing this or tagging your friends in the comments to get more eyes on this. We appreciate that. Someone asked, do we think they'll upgrade us to a high risk? High risks are very rare, but I wouldn't rule anything out. I'm not going to say they won't, but we were kind of anticipating getting upgraded to a 4. I'm not totally convinced they'll go to a 5.
Right.
It wouldn't shock me, but what I want you to ask yourself is ultimately what would that change about what you're doing right now? Because either way, a 4 out of 5, we need to be prepared for widespread severe weather
Even
tomorrow.
Even a 3 out of 5,
yes.
you need to be prepared for that. So don't get too hung up on the actual category you're in. It's just more so a confidence thing. So like the higher the category you see, we're more confident that severe weather is going to occur and it's going to be widespread. So a level 4, pretty good confidence there. So just because we're not in level 5 doesn't mean you should be taking this, not seriously. We definitely want you to prepare everything you can. Make sure you have that safe space ready, because of course all hazards are possible, not just hail and damaging winds, but tornadoes as well, especially as we get into Friday, which we'll discuss those risks.
Yeah. So most of these questions are about Friday. We did have one person asking about the tornado risk for tonight. Could we see tornadoes tonight? If these storms break through the cap, that's certainly a possibility.
Right.
But I wouldn't think it would be a widespread threat. So you still want to go to bed with, make sure you've got a way to receive warnings, the usual spring in the tri-state, severe storm possible kind of shtick there, where you want to make sure that you're ready. You want to make sure you know where your safe place is and how to get your warnings. But I would not consider us to have any sort of widespread tornado risk tonight. That's really much more into tomorrow.
Yeah, it's much more Friday afternoon, Friday evening.
Right.
And luckily, looking at some of the models for Friday, it does kick a lot of that thunderstorm activity out of here by around 10 to 11 o'clock tomorrow night.
Yeah,
so
the good news for tomorrow's timing is it looks like it won't be an overnight threat. Everybody should be awake and aware. The bad news is people might be out and about.
Right.
So, there's always that give or take. So, we've talked about Thursday. Let's move into Friday, because that's really the situation we're more concerned about. I think that's the more serious threat, and you see that reflected in the risk map here as well, because Friday is when we have all been upgraded to that level 4. So we are talking about a risk of widespread severe weather Friday afternoon and into Friday evening. So let's take a look at the timing. This starts out Friday morning, right?
Yes, so this is starting out Friday morning. This is around mid to late morning, 9 a.m. We're actually dry by this point. So if we do see...
maybe even getting some sunshine.
Yeah, maybe even seeing some sunshine out there. Again, that's just going to add fuel for these thunderstorms to move in later on in the day. But then as we progress through the morning hours here, we stay dry. It's actually going to be a pretty nice first half of the day for Friday, but it's pretty quick once we get into that afternoon that we start to see those thunderstorms begin to build back in from southwest to northeast. So this particular model wants to bring in that thunderstorm activity by around 2:30, 3 o'clock, beginning southwest of Evansville, and then eventually lifting into the northeast there. So by around 3:30, 4 o'clock, a lot of the tri-state now likely being hit by these thunderstorms as they move on in. Now, a lot of the models are kind of pointing out a little bit of a bowing feature or some sort of line that develops, which would definitely kind of increase our confidence in that damaging wind threat there. So when you see that bowing line segment move through, that always indicates to me likely some strong winds with that as that moves on in.
And I would also mention, I think this will happen pretty quickly. This isn't a situation where we'll be tracking storms way out in Missouri and watch them inch closer to us all day long. It looks like these will just sort of all of a sudden blow up over our region tomorrow afternoon. It'll be one of those situations where you see the clouds sort of starting to billow up and then turn into this very large, potentially severe thunderstorm rather quickly. So this may happen fairly fast, starting around 1 o'clock or so tomorrow afternoon. It just sort of blows up then as we go through the afternoon hours, and it's possible this would just be the first of 2 rounds on Friday. As those storms kind of start to slide off to the east then Friday evening, notice we've got another round developing off to the west.
Right, and that is, right on the heels of that first line. Now, again, there's always going to be some give and take with this. If this first round moves in as hot and heavy as this model shows, it may comb through a lot of the energy for that second line of storms.
Right.
So maybe it won't be quite as impactful, but still definitely something we need to watch with that second line moving in between 7-10 o'clock at night.
Yeah, and it's worth mentioning that not all of the models are showing a second round. Some of them are just showing that first round sort of tilting and lengthening and maybe lingering into the evening more, but not necessarily developing a whole second round. So there is still some uncertainty there, and like Michael said, we're not sure how much energy will be left in the atmosphere by this time, but certainly a possibility that we would then have a second round of severe storms Friday evening that would linger into the first part of Friday night. But then, like we said, the good news is it does look like this will then be out of here by 11 o'clock, maybe midnight at the latest. So for most folks, you're going to be able to, say we're in the clear and go on to bed Friday night. This isn't looking like an overnight threat, but there may be a lot of folks out and about Friday afternoon, Friday evening. So you want to make sure that you're being very weather aware wherever you're going to be on Friday, because this is a widespread severe weather threat.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what that 4 means. Widespread severe thunderstorms likely, and then there's a look at those individual risks, so you can see along with that general risk for severe thunderstorms, each individual risk for severe weather has also increased. So you can see flooding also now in the picture here a little bit more. We're expecting multiple rounds possibly of heavy rainfall.
Very heavy rain within those thunderstorms. They could, it will just absolutely pour within some of these. So it may not be a long-term flooding issue, but it could be one of those situations where it's raining faster than it can drain off. And so you may have just some very quick flash flooding on some of the roadways tomorrow as these storms move through. But flooding is really not the main risk here.
No, the main risk here is pretty much all of the other risks.
Yes.
It's wind, hail, and tornadoes. They're pretty much all at the same level here. Or actually, wind is probably our highest risk.
Yeah, level 4 there.
45% with the hatch marking. So remember, the hatch markings mean particularly more significant. So hurricane force wind gusts, not just strong wind gusts, but 75 miles per hour or greater. Again, with the hail, not just large hail, but 2-inch in diameter or greater.
So that's like, egg to tennis ball to maybe even, baseball sized hail. Big damaging hail may be possible.
Yes, and then of course that 10% hatched tornado risk, indicating EF2 or greater tornadoes are possible, potentially even longer lived and long tracked. So.
Yeah, and he mentioned that possible bowing segment within those storms Friday afternoon and evening. That's where you really see that sort of widespread damaging wind risk. When you've got that bow going, as that blows through, you could see just a swath of wind damage that may include, downed trees, power outages, things like that. So again, this is just for those of you who are visual and like 2 different ways to receive the information. This is a different way of showing that same thing. Really, this elevated risk of damaging winds, hail, and tornado, with that significant risk for not just wind, but hurricane force wind, not just hail, but hen egg size hail, and not just tornadoes, but potentially EF2 or greater, maybe even longer tracked tornadoes. So this is a serious risk as we get into the day on Friday.
Yeah, so we want to make sure we're doing everything we can to prepare for this. So we've got some
so
tips.
we've given you all this information. What should you be doing right now with that information? Well, for starters, the fact that you're watching this is a good first step. Pay attention to the weather. Use the most up-to-date information. As these storms are coming in tomorrow, tune back in so that you have the very latest information. Have a way to receive alerts. Don't be dependent on outdoor storm sirens. We'll talk more about how you should be getting your alerts in just a moment. But then also know your safe places. This is going to come at a time where many of you may be out and about. So it's important to know your safe place at home, but also think about if you're at school, if you're at work, if you're, wherever you're expected to be Friday afternoon and evening, would you know where to go in that location? On the actual first alert weather day. So for the storms tonight, that would qualify here, but especially as we get into the day on Friday, tomorrow morning, again, be checking back in, get the very latest information. Things will be evolving, things will be changing. Adjust your plans if you need to. If you've got outdoor plans Friday afternoon and evening, maybe reschedule those, because I don't think that's going to be a good time to be outside, and I would hate for anyone to be caught outside in the kind of storms we're expecting tomorrow. Remind your family of the safety plan. spring in the tri-state. We've been through this several times already, but it's been a few weeks since we've had some major severe weather. So make sure everybody remembers where to go and what to do. And then also make sure your shelter is clean and accessible. A lot of folks around here, your storm shelter may be, a closet or something like that that's full of, the Christmas tree and the vacuum cleaner and whatever else may be crammed in there. Make sure that you've got that cleared out where you can very easily and quickly go to that safe place without having to clear it out first. So just be aware of that. But then if a warning is actually issued, that's when it's time to move.
Yeah, you want to take action immediately if you're placed under a severe thunderstorm warning and especially a tornado warning. You want to go into your safe place immediately, a room without windows or exterior walls or doors, so the most interior room that you can get, and you also want to bring something to protect your head and get low to the ground. So maybe on your way to that safe space, grabbing a pillow or a helmet, grabbing a pair of shoes, and just kind of hunkering down in your shelter, whether that be a closet or a storm shelter or a hallway, maybe an interior bathroom, just anything with as much house between you and the outdoors.
And I'm glad you mentioned severe thunderstorm warning as well, Michael, because we do tend to put a lot of emphasis on tornado warnings, and rightfully so. But with the kind of weather we're expecting tomorrow, don't think of it as just a severe thunderstorm warning. That thing could be packing hurricane force winds, baseball-sized hail. That's still going to do a lot of damage. It is still not safe to be near windows. You could have downed trees and things like that. So even the severe thunderstorm warnings tomorrow, you want to really move and take action and get somewhere safe. So we keep talking about your safe place. Let's make sure everybody knows what that would look like. So it's really important to just put as much building between you and the outside as you possibly can.
Yeah, and so a lot of times that's going to put you in an interior room, like a hallway, a closet, a stairwell, or even in a bathroom. It's really important just to avoid the windows and any sort of exterior doors or walls. And as I mentioned before, a great idea to bring something with you to that safe space, blankets, mattress protection, couch cushions, helmets, and whatever. But the overall best safe place you can be is underground. If you have a basement, go to the basement. You are going to be safe in there. Still bring all of the necessary things like your shoes and your protection for your head. But lowest level is always going to be the safest bet.
Yeah, and we've talked about shoes a few times already this year. That's something a lot of people forget, especially if they're at home. A lot of people don't wear shoes in their home. They go to their safe place. They're all barefoot. If you come back out, there's broken glass, debris, damage. You want to make sure everybody has good, sturdy shoes on if you're going to be walking around in that, and you don't want to have to be hunting for your shoes in the middle of all that. So please remember to bring those shoes and go somewhere safe if a warning is issued. So how do you know if a warning is issued? How are you going to get those warnings? Again, we want to emphasize, do not depend on storm sirens. First of all, that's not what they're designed for. They're not built to be heard indoors. They were designed to alert people who are outside that they need to move inside to get more information and seek shelter. So if you're inside, you're not really designed to hear those. And we've had several problems in this past year with storm sirens across the tri-state not working. So please do not be dependent on those. Instead, ideally, you would have two ways to receive warnings: a NOAA weather radio as well as the 14 First Alert app. If you don't have the time or the money to go out and buy a weather radio between now and these storms, at the very least, get the First Alert app. It is free. You can set it up where it alerts you for your location. It'll follow your location wherever your phone is. So even if you're away from home tomorrow, wherever you are, it would still alert you for that location. And you can set all of those alerts up, customize it, make sure it makes whatever sound you would prefer, alerts you for whatever warnings you would prefer. There's a lot of ways to customize that, and it is completely free. And you would also get updates from us throughout the day leading up to these storms too. So that comes back to that getting the very latest information. So the 14 First Alert app is a great tool. I don't just say that because I work here. I use it when I'm at home every day.
So the radar is very useful. You want to check out where the showers are. We've got that on the app. So.
Yeah, it's a really excellent tool. So if you don't already have it, please download that 14 First Alert app and set up your notifications. And then during the day tomorrow, make sure that you're paying attention to those notifications, and maybe even have your phone on sound, on ring, so that that notification will make a noise that you'll hear rather than being on vibrate. We just want everybody to do everything they possibly can to stay safe as these storms roll through tomorrow. Now, one thing that we haven't really mentioned is the heat.
Yeah.
That's kind of gone to the wayside with everything that we've got going on with these storms, but it is really warm out there today. We've got temperatures in the mid to even upper 80s, and I think we'll climb another degree or two before sunset. So
absolutely.
It's very possible some of us will hit 90 for the first time this year later this afternoon, but all that heat, all that humidity, it just provides energy for those storms. Tomorrow is still going to be a warm one as well, with those highs in the mid to upper 80s again. But then once these storms roll through Friday evening, we will cool things back down, and the weekend is looking pretty nice. I'm going to take a quick check of the comments now to see what questions you guys have about Friday. I know there were quite a few in here. We have lots of comments to comb through, so give me just a moment. But we do also then have alerts for the middle of next week, but not really any details on that yet. It's too early.
It's a little too early for that. It's more of just like a highlight of a pattern. That
a heads up.
Yeah, a heads up. They may get taken down as we get closer, so those are definitely still something we need to deal with. Once all of the severe weather for tomorrow is pretty much cleared out of here, we'll be able to better focus on what's going to be happening next week, because we know a lot of you guys are graduating or have a last day of school, some sort of event next week. So we know it's going to be busy. So we're going to detail those sooner, but we got to get through tonight and tomorrow.
Yeah, let's take it one alert day at a time. We do have some folks asking about specific locations, and we really want to drive home that this is a widespread threat across our entire region.
Right. There is no one area that we're more concerned with than over the other. We're all within that blanket level 4 out of 5 risk for Friday, and we're all in that level 2 risk out of 5 for this afternoon and into the overnight hours.
I'm going to actually scroll back up to the top with this here, because we do have some people asking today versus tomorrow what the risk looks like. Some of you may have tuned in a little late, so I do want to just drive home that today, this evening, overnight, it's a level 2 risk. We may get a few severe storms, but that's not the widespread risk. Friday is where everybody is at the level 4.
Yeah, level 4, widespread severe weather. This is definitely the more confidence we have in the storms actually being there, and the setup overall is a lot more favorable. We have a lot more lift. We've got even more instability, even more shear. So everything about tomorrow is just a lot more elevated compared for today. So today, again, still have a way to receive your warnings, especially as you go to bed. You don't need to stay awake tonight, I don't think. But, having a way to hear your warnings so that you can get them if you are placed under one, that's pretty much what you're good to do for tonight. Tomorrow, the good news is it's moving in during the daytime, and most people aren't going to be sleeping as these storms move in. And so we're not concerned with an overnight threat for Friday, but the threat is much greater through tomorrow afternoon, and you want to make sure that you are in a place that you can get to safety. So again, Arden mentioned earlier, a lot of folks may be displaced from their homes tomorrow afternoon. A lot of people are at work, school, extracurricular activities, and may not know their safe space. So definitely thinking about where that could be in your school or in your workplace.
Right. Wherever you are tomorrow afternoon, anytime you go somewhere other than where you normally are, be thinking about, are there windows in the bathrooms? A lot of the time in big public buildings, the bathrooms are the safest place. They're usually kind of toward the middle. They don't have any windows, things like that. So just be thinking about where you would go and what you would do, and go ahead and have that plan sort of ever evolving as you go throughout your day, Friday afternoon and evening. And if it's something that, especially if it's something outside, just move it, cancel it, move it to a different day. It's just not worth the hassle of trying to figure that out or constantly be worried about everyone's safety. I would say just cancel it. So most of the other comments are people just sort of swapping stories about their own storm anxiety. We did have one person say, what if your basement has windows?
Okay.
That's true. There are a lot of walkout basements and things like that, but there's almost always somewhere within that basement that you could still go, maybe under the basement stairs. A closet, a bathroom, even just a back corner. Underground is still safest, but then if there's, the basement is only going to have windows and doors on one side. Go to the back side that's more underground, and you'll be just fine. So you know, we're getting kind of into the details there, kind of sweating the nitty gritty at that point. A basement is a safe place to be. Just don't go, you know, stand in front of the window. Be back away from the window, more inside, as far from that as you can get. So. We also have a handful of people asking about the cap tomorrow. Is it possible that these storms won't happen due to cap?
I think that's unlikely.
Yeah.
I think, the cap is going to erode away overnight tonight some, and then we've got, you know, more shear, so that helps mix it out a little bit as we go through Friday. So Friday, while there may still be a little bit, the front that's moving through is going to kick it out.
Right, that's the other thing. We've got this cold front coming in, and that's going to give this extra forcing mechanism that's going to help kind of push things through if there is any cap left. So I think we've got enough forcing tomorrow that it's unlikely that Friday is going to be a bust where, oh, we were just capped and these storms don't happen. That's unlikely. You need to be prepared for storms on Friday. Let's not put all our hopes into a cap that will most likely have eroded by then. But I think that pretty much wraps it up. I'm not seeing any more questions or comments at this time. Again, this should all be out of here Friday night, like by 11 p.m. or midnight. So you should be fine to go to bed Friday night. Weekend looks fine. We are expecting more storms by the middle of next week, but we don't have a lot of details on that just yet. Just kind of the heads up. It looks like we'll probably get some storms. They might even be severe. That's a time of year, like Michael mentioned before, where there's a lot going on. There's, you know, last day of school, there's graduation parties, award ceremonies, graduations, all kinds of different things going on. So we just wanted to give you the heads up as soon as we could that it's possible some severe weather might impact those. But we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Jeff Lyons will be on later tonight for the 14 First Alert streaming show at 9 p.m. However you're watching us right now, you can watch Jeff again tonight at 9. If there are any updates, upgrades, changes to the timing, anything like that over the next 6 hours, Jeff will have that very latest information for you tonight at 9. And obviously, he'll also have your forecast at 4, 5, 6, and 10 on 14 News. So I hope you'll join Jeff Lyons later tonight. And unless you have anything else,
I think that's it.
All right, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Everybody make your severe weather safety plan, stay safe, and have a good rest of your Thursday.